designers, this is Anna Livermore from V.Mora, and this is our podcast in the district, and I'm here with Laura DeTolo. Laura, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Laura DeTolo. I'm the founder of the Clutchmade Factory, where we develop and design accessories in the garment district made in the USA. You can reach us at clutchmade.com. You can reach out and schedule a free call for 15 minutes. We can talk about your ideas and your accessories and how to get started.
Great. And as always, you can reach out to us. It's V as in Victor, MOR.com to schedule a 20-minute strategy session. We help launch fashion designers, pattern samples, sourcing, budget, costing, production, post-production, photo shoots, branding, anything you're going to need. Anyway, so today what we're talking about is designers and selling themselves short, because it's something that we run into so much, and we just wanted to talk about it and empower the designers listening to know you've got to value yourself and your product. So, Laura, you were talking about how bag designers will compare themselves to Michael Kors and think that they have to compete at that price level. Tell us a little bit about, I know why that's not a good idea, but let's tell the listeners a little bit about how they should be viewing themselves and why that's not, it's not an attainable goal.
Exactly. Wow, this is such a huge conversation right now with everything that's happening. All of a sudden there's this huge pivot. People are more interested in making in the USA. And I think we talked about this on our last podcast about how everybody wants to buy made in USA, but they're not quite ready to pay the price. So this is part of the process. As we spoke before, people are ready to buy local. They want to buy local. They're interested in making local. Okay. So when you're interested in making local, there is a higher price point you're going to pay for labor, for materials, whoever's consulting with you, wherever you're getting your things, because USA is not a cheap place to live.
Yeah, and even staying local, you're also not hitting those minimums. Like Michael Kors is making 100,000 units offshore.
Oh, it must be millions, honestly, of certain styles even, or thousands of certain styles. So we do have people who come into us, they'll show us a bag, and then they'll tell us what their final retail price point that they want. And let's say our minimums are very low. We do small batch. We specialize in that. It seems to be the trend now as we go forward in the world. No one wants to sit on a lot of inventory anymore. So, hey, we'll do 25 bags. We'll do 50 bags for you. But at the same time, you can't compare yourself to the Michael Kors price point that they're selling for at Macy's.
Correct.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so people are under this notion that, I can order 25 bags and I want them to come in at that price point. Well, we have to say, hold on there.
Yeah.
Listen, just for development alone, hardware, making in the USA as opposed to making offshore, not having that kind of inventory of hardware, raw goods, raw materials for the price points they're getting it, completely different.
Yeah. And something I like to remind the designers too is when you're looking for competitors, look for someone that's also making domestically, that's also an independent designer doing these smaller number inventories, and compare yourself there instead of comparing yourself. As for clothing, I sometimes get people that compare themselves to H&M or The Gap or Banana Republic, and that's just completely unattainable. So what you've got to do is, again, and we've talked a little bit about this in another podcast, educate your consumer as to why they're paying for that higher price point.
Exactly. Yes. I actually, during our consultations, when you do a design consultation with us, we talk about finding your who else is on the marketplace, making something similar. And I always say to my clients, look for products that are made in the USA that are similar. Yeah. It's not going to be as much out there, but you just cannot be comparing yourself to people who are making overseas. It just doesn't come out. It doesn't come out in the wash. Yeah.
And I do too. I want the designers to value themselves and value what they're giving. So to understand that that's okay. It's okay to have a higher priced garment or bag because you're sustainable, you're working in the States, you're doing smaller minimums, you're creating less waste, you're not sitting on a huge inventory, you're selling who you are and your services and your designs. So it's okay to really get behind having a price where you make profit. Because if you're not making a profit, Why are you doing that?
Exactly. It's not
What's the point?
Not just a hobby. And this is when you can really start branding yourself and talking about what goes into your product. So there's a little hard work here, but it definitely pays off.
Yeah.
You can't just say, oh, you know what, I'm going to have to do this higher price point, bite your lip, and then not put any energy into it or effort into elevating your brand.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And
like a good photo shoot, professional models, high-end editing, like make it look like you can't just have this $1,000 dress and then, throw it on a hanger on your wall and expect it to sell.
Exactly. You need to talk about the fabric, where it came from, the workmanship in the sewing, why you chose certain things. It's called adding value.
Yeah.
So at that point, you really need to add some value to your product.
Yeah. And we wanted to talk about, like, a lot of designers will worry about what other people will think about them. Like, well, if I launch this collection and my dress is $300, it's too expensive and everyone's going to tell me it's too expensive. And then, sometimes you're creating a product that you yourself can't afford. That's another thing that I find is difficult with designers. Like, they're like, well, I would never buy a dress at $300. And it's like, well, plenty of people do. Get in front of that customer. Get in front of the person, because there are the people out there that will invest in an independent designer, something in the U.S., understand the value, and pay that price.
Yes, exactly. That's great advice, too.
Yeah.
It's important not to always think that you're designing for you. Maybe you're designing your ideal product, but when you get out there and now you're a professional designer, because you are running this little business and running this brand, you have to open yourself to, like, who's your demographic now?
Right.
Let's be real. Let's look into that and see what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So being able to focus on getting in front of your customer, it might not be you in the beginning, but if you have a successful business, then one day, I know when I started my business, I wasn't buying the clothes that my clients are launching, because I couldn't afford it.
Exactly.
But, 12 years later, gratefully, I can, and I understand, and I make it a point to go to the stores in New York that are housing independent designers that sell. And there's stores in Soho here in New York that I've gone to, and I'll look at a garment and see that it's made in the U.S. I might know the designer, and I'll say right away, this is underpriced.
Yes.
I know it's underpriced because that designer's not pricing their garment at what it should be because they want to sell.
Exactly. Oh, and you just lose out, and the run for your business and how long you're going to survive. You're going to just shorten your lifespan at that point.
Yeah. I once worked for a designer in Chicago who was very well established and people knew their name. And I started helping with, the pattern and the sampling and then into the costing. And I saw her costing and I was like, wait. But do you understand you're paying this boutique to sell your garment because you're not getting enough money from what you're selling it for? It doesn't cover your cost even. And they were like, well, we really want to be in that store for the name.
Right.
But what's the point?
What is the point? Exactly.
Because if you're not making the money on it, and that's very common when I get behind, like a successful designer and I get into their pricing and I see that they're not making money on their wholesale price or their retail price. They're not covering their expenses. And you can't maintain a business at that.
No, that's a real wake-up call. And it's good you go over that.
Yeah.
I try and touch upon that. We touch upon that with our clients a bit. Usually we provide most of the materials and we go through all the costings, so we give them the number.
Right.
But if they do provide the materials to us, it's really important that they're realistic about how much they're paying per foot on leather, what is their shipping. Just make sure you have all your costs in there. Make sure you know how to do your Excel sheet and really put everything in there so you can see your numbers. Yeah. I mean, when I started out my handbag business, it was really on the more luxury side of pricing.
Yeah.
And I really believed in it. And I found my client. I found who my customer was out there just by talking about the Italian hardware, the Italian leather, the style of it, not being able to find something of that quality on the marketplace. And that really helped to elevate the brand at the time. And I really was able to find my niche.
Yeah, exactly. So I think just anyone that's listening, having the confidence to know that your customer is there at that higher price point. It might not be you. It might not be your friends. But there are people spending a lot of money on bags and clothes and shoes and, they're out there. Just being able to elevate your brand to the level that it's attractive to those people at that higher price point. And it's completely doable. And at the end of the day, if you're not making money, why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You have no other choice.
Right.
You've got to sell it at a price that makes sense for you. Another thing I always like to add for my designers is I'll see what they're doing and how they're doing it and how much they're working and and I'll say to them, and I had someone say this to me early on in my career, what you're doing to yourself is actually illegal. If you worked for someone, they wouldn't be able to tell you to work overnight and to not sleep and to meet these deadlines that are unattainable. And, your whole personal life is out the window. Like, yes, as business owners, we give up a lot, but there becomes a certain point. I remember I said I was sewing buttons on a garment while driving on Lakeshore Drive for a deadline at 9 a.m. And I was like, and I had someone be like, you're now putting your life in danger. Like, that's completely, like, that's not even, like, that's far from illegal. Because I had someone say, you're either saying yes to things you should be saying no to, or you're procrastinating. But what you're doing to yourself is actually illegal. A boss would not legally be able to do to you what you're doing to yourself.
Yes. So it's important to make sure you're paying yourself for your work. So that's value that you need to add in. I think that sometimes when, we have clients that either hire you or myself in this business to work with, they forget all the work that goes into something. And that's like a large part of the value of what they're paying for. Because if they, honestly, when people start up, when they have to find and locate and resource and source everything themselves, it takes a lot of time. And that time equals money. And that's your money. And you really need to learn how to factor that into what you're doing and find the value. I think value is the big word here today.
Value, yeah. Value yourself, value your product. I think too, what I find that I'll always like politely say to a client is that you want to check your ego, right? You want to be a fashion designer so badly that you're okay with not making money, or that you're okay with spending thousands of dollars on a fashion show that you're not going to get a return on because you get to walk down the runway and you get to show off and you get to have this party. And it's like, if you're okay with that, like if some of my clients have the funding to have this lifestyle of being a fashion designer and have these fashion shows, but not all of us have the luxury of doing that. And if you have to make money, you have to ask yourself, like, yes, having this party, having this fashion show, I'm not going to get a return on it, but is it worth it for my ego to have that show if I'm not going to make any money? Do you ever experience that where it might be more about saying I'm a fashion designer, saying I'm having a fashion show than it is on the actual return, and a smart business person will reevaluate that?
Yes, I've had quite a few clients who've been on that page.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's been a wake-up call where they've realized it during the process. Other times I don't until they're packing them up all the bags and putting them in storage for good,
right?
Or trying to get rid of them. There is a lot of work that goes along with it. I think today, though, talking about ego and where you're going to spend your money and how you're going to get it out there, it's just so great and cool that things are changing in that regard, that you can do so many cool things online and be so effective in like a new, better way that is like really cost saving.
Yeah.
It's like you really don't need to spend a lot of money to get the word out there, and you can be creative with it. I really think the fashion shows, I don't know about what you've heard, but it doesn't seem like it's where people want to be spending. Brands don't want to be spending money there anymore. I think they're seeing the return now. They have to face the music with the way the world is now. So you might see a little decrease in interest on that front.
I've always been against fashion shows.
Yeah.
I've always, because I've never seen it return.
Oh, when I started off, I used to work on fashion shows when I was a fashion stylist in New York City. So I was behind the scenes a lot. I saw, the invoices that would come through, the money, just for those few minutes of, getting it out there and the expenses and what people had to pay. And I've never really been a fan of it either. I always thought there was better ways to get things out there. And a lot of times on the runway, you're not even seeing what's really going to be shipped or what's on the racks or what they're going to produce. It's just for fanfare and press. And
which
really,
you can get
yes,
so much easier
exactly.
through Instagram, working with influencers, through social media. Like, you don't have to invest that dollar amount into a fashion show.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Anna. It's like you can just find your own press in really cool ways, and even cross-pollinating with other brands, getting the word out there. There's just, like I said, so many cool ways to do it without spending the money.
Yeah. And even for me today, it's like, does my ego want this, or will I get a return? Like, I had a press opportunity that I had to pay for, and it was like, it would be really cool. It was like a name everyone would know. I could tell my friends, like, I was in this, like, magazine, da-da-da-da. And at the end of the day, it's like, my ego wanted that. I wouldn't get a return on that. Mm-hmm. It's not a smart business opportunity for me. And I have to do that I think as business owners, we all have to do that.
Oh, I think so, because that's a reality check when you're looking at payroll and your expenses. You know, you really have to start thinking, like, is this going to take me somewhere? You know, sometimes you do something and then all of a sudden you have a few calls for new clients. Maybe you, you know, have a talk on Maker's Row, or, you know, you do an Embark Live or something, and then you see your return, because then you have people who are interested in signing up with you. So there's like a direct return.
Yeah, if you're in front of the right audience.
Exactly.
So always making sure you're in front of an audience that's going to buy your product. And a lot of times at the fashion shows or, you know, these different events, you're not in front of the customer that's going to buy your product. And you might not get the press needed to get in front of the customers that are going to buy your product. So
that's so true. Yeah. You know, I was just thinking, even us as business owners, we've had to learn how to elevate our own product, even as our services, and talk about what it is we do for our clients and how we can take you from A to Z, and the path we're going to take you on and how that works, and the customer service you're going to get. So, I mean, for anything you're really doing out there, it's really talking about and describing what the value is of the product that you're selling. Yeah,
and knowing that even though it's fashion and it's fun and it's trendy and it's cool, at the end of the day, it's business, and you've got to pay yourself for your time. You've got to educate your customer about why they're investing in you and buying that product at that price, and think about things realistically. What is your return? What value are you offering? And I think too, it's important to say, like, you can do it. You know, you can do it. You can get that price that has the profit margins. You can be successful. There are plenty of people doing it that don't have anything that you don't have if you put in the work and you evaluate all your situations logically.
Exactly. I mean, and we continue to stress this when we're making bags, because we really only produce quality accessories, and that's all I want us to produce. Right. I don't want to produce any schlock. When people start talking, and our clients start saying, maybe this is too expensive. You know, for 25 or 50, it could seem expensive, but we're going to make something really good and stand behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about takeaways from today's call. For a new designer, what should they be focusing on prior? I think for my first tip would be just look at your competition in the right way. Like, find the people that are producing domestically in lower minimums as an independent designer. Like, rework where you want your end price to be based off of what you're providing. And how much the goods are.
So find your competition. Find your healthy competition, but go straight to where they're manufacturing.
Yeah. And then really take themselves seriously as a business owner and value their time and how they're treating themselves.
Exactly.
In regards to the hours you work, the time you put in, how are you working? Are you, overwhelmed? Are you paying yourself? Is it worth it?
Exactly.
Any other tips for them today?
I think that's a good one to focus on. I would say My other tip would be like really focus on your about us. I know that really relates to like your website, but I think it's super important to come up with your story.
Yep.
I think that adds a lot of value to your brand and in the end to your product. Who are you? Why are you doing this? What's your background? What's the professionalism you're bringing onto this? Why did you design this? What's the special purpose of this? Find a purpose for your product.
Yep.
Okay. The more you can talk about the purpose for your handbag, it's not just another handbag, but what does it do? What does it offer you? What can it hold? What's the function that makes it the better price? Besides being made in the USA, what are the materials?
Yep.
Are they high-end materials? Talk about the materials. Where are they from? What can they do? How do they hold up? So all those things kind of go into it. And again, that's what I was talking about. Showing the value of what you have and adding the value by offering it information. Because the more you talk about something, the more people are educated about it. And then they know more. It makes them proud to buy it because then they'll tell everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, that was another great podcast of In the District. Again, I'm Anna Livermore from V.Mora.
And Laura DiTolo from Clutch Made.
Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.